Grant us the assurance that when we approach you in faith, you cleanse us of all our guilt and purify us of all unrighteousness. Let such awareness of your unconditional love and steadfast mercy change the attitude we may have brought with us into this place. Rather, let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, a hope in your redemption and renewal at work in us and in the world. For you, O Lord, are faithful. Your promises are trustworthy. Confident in your provision and sure of your salvation, we devote ourselves to your perfect plan for this day. In your eternal and sovereign name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain up to 15 requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. Where is this? For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Iowa seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the life of Norman Benjamin Schmelzer III, a proud son of Iowa and a remarkable American whose legacy of service and love continues to inspire. Born in Davenport in 1949 and a graduate of Bettendorf High School, Norm never stopped representing the values of his home state. After earning a degree in criminology from California State University at Long Beach, Norm joined the U.S. Army Intelligence School, graduating first in his class. He then served as a special agent within the United States Secret Service. Norm's passion for justice led him to Loyola University School of Law, where he graduated third in his class before founding his own successful law practice. He was a dedicated public servant, a devoted husband, and a proud father and grandfather. Norm's journey was one of purpose and perseverance. He and his wife, Jane, both Secret Service agents, became the first two agents to marry within the agency. And being a fellow veteran and having a brother in the Secret Service, I know how challenging that is. Their 50-year love story is a testament to their shared courage and commitment. To his family watching today, including his beloved sister Christine and his niece McKenna, who is here in the gallery today, please know that this chamber recognizes Norm's extraordinary life and mourns his loss with you. Norm embodied the spirit of honor, integrity, and service. He leaves behind a legacy of kindness and excellence that will not be forgotten. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
The chair reminds members not to refer to persons in the gallery. The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, messages from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has passed S-433, an act to require the Secretary of Commerce to establish the National Manufacturing Advisory Council within the Department of Commerce and for other purposes, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, diethylstilbestrol, or DES, is a drug that was prescribed to pregnant women between 1940 and 1971 to prevent miscarriage. As early as 1953, there was evidence it didn't work. Nevertheless, it was prescribed for decades because the FDA waited years to alert doctors that something was wrong. Since then, we've learned DES is an endocrine disruptor that leads to rare cancers and birth defects across generations of families, including among men and women who call themselves DES sons and daughters and who are leading the charge for more awareness and a formal apology. One of my constituents, a DES daughter herself, Caitlin McCarthy, has been a leader in this effort. She is joined today with Dr. Gwendolyn Mink and Karen Fernandez and Andrea Gardner, also leaders in this effort. But despite years of false starts and half apologies, the FDA has still not actually said sorry for failing to warn the public in time. Mr. Speaker, these people deserve that formal apology. But until then, Congress ought to pass my resolution, H-Res 342, which establishes DES Awareness Week and urges the FDA to fund a follow-up study and issue an apology. An apology will not undo the damage, but it will set us on a path to making things right. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House and provide to extend my remarks for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Americans are grateful that under the leadership of President Donald Trump, America is beating inflation, leading to lower cost, higher pay, and job creation. American families are experiencing a 7.5% increase in real income, more than 3 times the pace of last year under the Biden administration. Gas prices have fallen nearly 3% in May alone, and everyday costs are also down over the past month, including those for meat, poultry, and eggs. President Trump is succeeding in creating jobs for families, increasing opportunities, and defeating inflation. These achievements reflect the goal of President Trump and the Republican-led Congress to put America first, promises made, promises kept. In conclusion, God bless our troops as the global war on terrorism continues. Trump is reinstituting existing laws to protect American families with peace through strength, revealing that war criminal Putin lies, insulting Trump, mocking Trump, with Moscow dismissing today Trump as being a theatrical ultimatum as Putin murders civilians in Ukraine and even in Russia. Our sympathy on the death of National Committeeman Glenn McCall, a devoted American patriot. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this administration's open hostility to programs involving diversity, equity, and inclusion is built on deep-seated prejudices that have no basis in constitutional principles, economic realities, or morality. Our Constitution has been amended specifically to advance inclusion and equity and diversity, granting freedom to Black Americans from slavery and ensuring their right to vote, establishing the right of women to vote and those over 18 as well, free speech, assembly, religious practices for all. Economic growth recognizes the buying power of all of our citizens and the rising tide that allows women, people of color, those of every demographic to grow businesses and buy services and products that expands our economy and makes us competitive in worldwide markets. And the morality of helping others. The Good Samaritan stopping by the roadside to help a beaten stranger not of his own religion is a testament to who is my neighbor, not just the person who shares my skin color. Policies to eliminate all DEI efforts are a vestige of the prejudiced past, not a prescription for a stronger future America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to recognize Tawanda Dickens, who is a civilian employee with the United States Capitol Police. Miss Dickens, as most of us call her, will be retiring in August after many years of remarkable service. Her work is often unseen as she covers the late night shift within the Capitol complex. But I, along with many others, agree that her work makes a real positive difference to those of us who know her. I am so fortunate that Miss Dickens not only helped me often, but as she did with many, many others, she befriended me. She's someone who's a friend to many here in the People's House, and she is respected by all who know her. Congratulations, Miss Dickens, on your well-deserved retirement. May God continue to bless you and your family as you enter this new and exciting chapter of your life. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to condemn Republicans' big, ugly law, which decimates food assistance for 42 million Americans, including millions of children, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. Erica from Wilson, North Carolina, had this to say about SNAP. As a grandmother who's having to raise my granddaughter, this program helps me. I survived 3 heart attacks, yet I'm still able to make sure my granddaughter is taken care of. At a time when so many families are struggling to put food on the table, why would we take away a lifeline that millions of Americans rely on? This past weekend, I visited Christ the King Lutheran Church in Cary, North Carolina, where I saw firsthand indispensable work to combat food insecurity in our own community. Republicans have abandoned vulnerable, hungry people to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. It's shameful and un-American. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize a major milestone in Centre County, the graduation of the 500th first responder from the Centre County Crisis Intervention Team Training Program. Since 2011, this initiative has brought together law enforcement, EMS, corrections officers, and mental health professionals for 40 hours of specialized training. These first responders are now better equipped to recognize mental health crisis, use de-escalation techniques, and connect individuals with appropriate care. Prior to my time serving in Congress, I spent decades as a volunteer firefighter and cross-trained as an EMT. I recognize and value the commitment these individuals have to their communities and understand firsthand the vital role that they play in ensuring public health and safety. These graduates are more than professionals. They are pillars in our community, working each day to ensure public safety with compassion and understanding. Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the Centre County CIT team for their dedication and congratulate all 500 graduates for their service to our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute, to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, our national archivist, our national security advisor, and our USAID administrator took some time off from his work in these full-time positions to exercise his additional powers as Secretary of State of the United States. The guy with 4 federal jobs fired en masse more than 1,300 professional civil servants at the State Department, each of them doing just one job and in general doing it in an exemplary and excellent way. They've devoted their careers to America and America's role in the world, but Secretary, Archivist, National Security Advisor, USAID Administrator Rubio has robbed America of centuries of their expertise for no apparent reason at all. This destruction of the American role in the world comes as China is bolstering its soft power everywhere. This is a giant blow to our national security and our effectiveness in the world. I want to express gratitude to the patriotic men and women at State, many of them my constituents, for their decades of service, and affirm our enduring commitment to the values they have worked so hard to advance.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to honor and congratulate the city of Provo, Utah, for earning the top rank as America's #1 best-run city. In WalletHub's 2025 study, Provo outperformed 148 other large U.S. cities, excelling in financial stability, public services, safety, infrastructure, and education. Mayor Michelle Kafusi aptly noted that getting the fundamentals right is the most important part of governance, like delivering quality education, maintaining safe neighborhoods, ensuring well-maintained infrastructure, and practicing responsible fiscal stewardship. This approach is validated by this national ranking, showing that going back to the basics leads to residents prospering, businesses flourishing, and a thriving community. Provo's success also reflects the vital presence of my alma mater, Brigham Young University, at the heart of the community. Home to over 35,000 students and a world-class private university, BYU provides a steady flow of educated graduates, drives economic activity, and fosters a culture of excellence that enriches every neighborhood. I'm also proud to note that our district office calls Provo home, and I'm grateful for the support from the local community there. I'm proud to represent the residents of Provo and to champion the excellent qualities they have on the floor of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I honor the remarkable life of Charles Parson Gaylor III, a distinguished district court judge, lifelong Goldsboro resident, and devoted servant. Charlie embodied compassion in his work, striking a balance between firmness and fairness. He enforced strict rules about cell phones in his courtroom, yet he approached the bench with such gentleness and care. His passion for life was evident in his deep love for his family, his genuine appreciation for history, his fascination with old cars. For more than 15 years, I was fortunate to call Charlie my friend. His memorial service was a testament to the lives he touched. Many friends, family, and colleagues gathered at his beloved First Presbyterian Church. Rhonda, for 52 years, Charlie was your steadfast partner. Mayor Gaylor, his son, always remember, get in, get out. Sarah and Charlie, you brought him great joy. My deepest condolence to you. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things we did in the big ugly bill that passed last week before, we put more money into ICE than we put into the FBI. The United States' largest investigative function will be in ICE, not in the FBI. More money chasing people who fix our roofs, take care of our yards, take care of our children, take care of our seniors, work the back section of the restaurants, and make America work. We should be putting that money into finding criminals that the FBI should be finding. We've got a crime problem. That should be first. The people committing felonies and rapes and murders and child sexual abuse. That's what they said they were going to go after in the immigration fights, but now they're going after statistics and records and put more people deported than any other country in the world. It's a shame. Crime should be focused on the FBI and not on, as President Trump said today, that the FBI should be working on voter fraud and public corruption and election fraud in the 2020 elections. And then he said thugs and criminals. First order, protect us from criminals. Save America, put our monies where they serve the best purpose, and that's the FBI and not ICE. I yield back the balance of my time.
Members are reminded to avoid personalities towards the president. The chair announces the speaker's appointment pursuant to 22 U.S.C. 6913 in the order of the House of January 3rd, 2025, of the following members on the part of the House to the Congressional Executive Commission on the People's Republic of China.
Mr. Swazi of New York and Mr. Subramaniam of Virginia.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, by the direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 580 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 37, House Resolution 580. Resolved that at any time after adoption of this resolution, the Speaker may, pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 18, declared the House resolved to the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of the bill H.R. 4016, making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2026, and for other purposes. The first reading of the bill shall be dispensed with. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. General debate shall be confined to the bill and shall not exceed 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees. After general debate, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. The bill shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill for failure to comply with Clause 2 or Clause 5A of Rule 21 are waived. Section 2A. No amendment to H.R. 4016 shall be in order except those printed in Part A of the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution. Amendments en bloc described in Section 3 of this resolution and pro forma amendments described in Section 4 of this resolution. B. Each amendment printed in Part A of the report of the Committee on Rules shall be considered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment except as provided in Section 4 of this resolution, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question in the House or in the Committee of the Whole. C. All points of order against amendments printed in Part A of the report of the Committee on Rules or against amendments en bloc described in Section 3 of this resolution are waived. Section 3. It shall be in order at any time for the chair of the Committee on Appropriations or his designee to offer amendments en bloc consisting of amendments printed in Part A of the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution not earlier disposed of. Amendments en bloc offered pursuant to this section shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for 20 minutes, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees, shall not be subject to amendment except as provided by Section 4 of this resolution, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question in the House or in the Committee of the Whole. Section 4. During consideration of H.R. 4016 for amendment, the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees may offer up to 10 pro forma amendments each at any point for the purpose of debate. Section 5. At the conclusion of consideration of H.R. 4016 for amendment, the committee shall rise and report the bill to the House with such amendments as may have been adopted. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and amendments thereto to final passage without intervening motion except one motion to recommit. Section 6. Upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the bill H.R. 3633 to provide for a system of regulation of the offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. In lieu of the amendments in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committees on Agriculture and Financial Services now printed in the bill, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-6 modified by the amendment printed in Part B of the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution, shall be considered as adopted. The bill as amended shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill as amended are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill as amended and on any further amendment thereto to final passage without intervening a motion except one. 1 hour of debate equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Agriculture or their respective designees, and the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. 2. The further amendment printed in Part C of the report of the Committee on Rules, if offered by the member designated in the report, which shall be in order without intervention of any point of order, shall be considered as read, shall be separately debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. And 3, one motion to recommit. Section 7. Upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the bill H.R. 1919 to amend the Federal Reserve Act
to prohibit the Federal Reserve banks from offering certain products or services directly to an individual, to prohibit the use of central bank digital currency for monetary policy and for other purposes. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. The amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Financial Services, now printed in the bill, shall be considered as adopted. The bill as amended shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill as amended are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill as amended and on any further amendment thereto to final passage without intervening motion except one. 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. And 2, 1 motion to recommit. Section 8. Upon adoption of this resolution, it shall be in order to consider in the House the bill, Senate 1582, to provide for the regulation of payment stablecoins and for other purposes. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. The bill shall be considered as read. All points of order against provisions in the bill are waived. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and on any amendment thereto to final passage without intervening motion except one. 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. And 2, 1 motion to commit. Section 9. The requirement of Clause 6A of Rule 13 for a 2/3 vote to consider a report from the Committee on Rules on the same day it is presented to the House is waived with respect to any resolution reported through the legislative day of July 18, 2025, relating to the bill H.R. 4, to rescind certain budget authority proposed to be rescinded in special messages transmitted to the Congress by the President on June 3, 2025, in accordance with Section 1012A of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 1 hour.
Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Scanlon, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume. During consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, last night, the Rules Committee met and reported a rule, House Resolution 580, providing for consideration of 4 measures. H.R. 1919, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, under a closed rule. The rule provides 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees, and provides 1 motion to recommit. Additionally, the rule provides for consideration of H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, also known as the Clarity Act, under a structured rule. The rule provides 1 hour of debate equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services and the Committee on Agriculture, or their respective designees, provides 1 motion to recommit, and makes 1 amendment in order. Further, the rule provides for consideration of S1582, the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act, also known as the Genius Act, under a closed rule. The rule provides 1 hour of debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees, and provides 1 motion to recommit. The rule also provides for consideration of H.R. 4016, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2026, under the structure rule. The rule provides 1 hour of debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Appropriations or their respective designees, provides 1 motion to recommit, and makes 330 amendments in order. Finally, the rule provides for same-day consideration of a measure related to rescissions this week. Mr. Speaker, we're here today to debate a rule on 4 pieces of legislation, beginning with H.R. 1919, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. Mr. Speaker, H.R. 1919 serves as a critical safeguard against the financial power and erosion of individual privacy in the United States, as it would prohibit the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency, CBDC, or using it to conduct monetary policy without explicit authorization from Congress. I would like to pose a fundamental question to my colleagues. Should the federal government have the power to monitor, control, or restrict how Americans use their own hard-earned money? Further, should the federal government be allowed to make such sweeping decisions behind closed doors without input from the public or their elected representatives? At its core, this bill is about ensuring the preservation of personal financial freedom. The American people have a basic right to financial privacy. They have a right to spend, to save, and to manage their money free from surveillance or interference. A CBDC would explicitly threaten that right by giving the federal government unprecedented insight into individual transactions and the potential ability to control or limit access to personal funds. H.R. 1919 is about one thing: stopping the government from gaining unchecked power over how Americans conduct their financial lives. It ensures that any form of digital currency is ever created by the Federal Reserve, it must be debated, authorized, and legislated by Congress instead of unilaterally developed by unelected bureaucrats operating behind closed doors. The potential consequences are too significant to permit unchecked bureaucratic experimentation with tools that could fundamentally redefine the relationship between individuals and their government without clear oversight risks, undermining long-standing economic principles. Now is the time for Congress to assert its role and ensure that any future developments uphold the values of transparency, individual rights, and a market-driven economy. Next, Mr. Speaker, the rule also provides for the consideration of H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, otherwise known as the Clarity Act. H.R. 3633 delivers a foundational framework that has been missing for far too long, which are clear, consistent rules for digital assets and the innovators building the future of finance. For years, American entrepreneurs and developers in the digital asset space have been forced to navigate a regulatory maze marked by conflicting guidance, shifting definitions, and enforcement actions in place of actual rules. These inconsistent conditions have stifled domestic innovation, discouraged responsible market participation, and driven capital and talent to more favorable jurisdictions abroad. H.R. 3633 addresses these issues directly by clarifying the legal status of digital assets and establishing well-defined regulatory responsibilities between the SEC and CFTC, creating a more predictable landscape for market participants while preserving critical investor protections and maintaining the integrity of U.S. financial markets. This legislation reasserts the role of Congress in setting national policy for emerging financial technologies. It ensures that decisions with far-reaching economic implications are not made through regulatory overreach, but through transparent and deliberative processes. H.R. 3633 is not only sound regulatory policy, but also essential economic policy. It will help preserve the United States leadership in financial innovation, support the growth of compliant digital asset markets, and provide much-needed certainty to investors, developers, and regulators alike. In an increasingly competitive global financial landscape, this legislation positions the United States to lead with clarity, credibility, and confidence. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the rule provides for consideration of S1582, the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act, otherwise known as the Genius Act. This is not just a stablecoin bill. This is a strategic step toward modernizing the U.S. financial infrastructure for the digital age while protecting the interests of consumers, markets, and the nation. S1582 provides a comprehensive regulatory framework for the issuance and oversight of payment stablecoins in the United States. It is designed to support responsible innovation, ensure consumer protection, and preserve the role of the U.S. dollar in an increasingly digitized global financial system. Stablecoins have become an essential component of the digital asset economy as they offer faster, lower-cost transactions and expand access to financial services. In the absence of a clear federal framework, however, stablecoin development has outpaced regulation, leaving investors without consistent protections and businesses without clear rules of the road. This legislation changes that by providing clear, enforceable standards for payment stablecoin issuers, creating practical regulatory pathways through both state and federal charters, and setting strong reserve and disclosure requirements to ensure these assets remain secure and trustworthy. Critically, this bill prohibits the issuance of algorithmic stablecoins lacking sufficient collateral, guarding against destabilizing risks that could ripple through the broader financial system. Also reinforcing the primacy of the U.S. dollar, this bill ensures that dollar-backed stablecoins are subject to prudent oversight and sound risk management. At a time when other nations are rapidly moving to define the future of digital finance, S1582 ensures the United States takes a prompt and necessary step forward with clarity, credibility, and confidence. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this rule provides for consideration of H.R. 4016, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2026. H.R. 4016 provides the critical funding necessary to ensure the readiness, modernization, and global strength of the United States Armed Forces. This bill reflects Congress's enduring commitment to our national defense and to the brave men and women who dutifully and selflessly serve this country with distinction. At a time of rising global threats, from strategic competitors like China and Russia to unstable regimes and non-state actors, America must remain prepared and ready. Deterrence requires strength, and strength requires sustained investment, which is exactly what this legislation delivers. This bill funds operations, maintenance, personnel, and the procurement across all branches of the military, ensuring that our service members have the tools, training, and resources they need to succeed in every domain, including land, air, sea, space, and cyberspace. It provides for next-generation systems and emerging technologies, strengthens our nuclear deterrent, and supports investments in cyber capabilities to defend against 21st century threats. Importantly, this legislation continues bipartisan efforts to improve military quality of life, including robust funding services for member pay increases, housing improvements, and family support programs, believing that those who sacrifice to defend this country should never have to sacrifice dignity or stability at home. H.R. 4016 reflects a deep commitment to national security, strategic deterrence, and support for those who serve. It is a targeted instability and deserving peace through strength and honors our constitutional duty to provide for the common defense, reinforcing global stability and ensuring that the United States remains ready to respond to emerging threats with confidence, capability, and conviction. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to consideration of these pieces of legislation and urge passage of this rule. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to the rule. Although Bitcoin's been around for over 15 years, cryptocurrencies and related decentralized financial products have exploded in the past few years. Many Americans now own cryptocurrencies, and the industry has seen significant growth. At the same time, our laws have not kept up with these novel crypto products, and there's a wide agreement that Congress must update our laws to appropriately account for crypto assets. However, today's bills are not the answer to that problem. The Clarity and Genius Acts are bad legislation. They're industry-written bills that give the crypto industry everything it wants at the expense of retail investors, consumers, and the overall health of our financial system. These bills are products of the DC swamp that so many of our colleagues usually condemn. Mr. Speaker, every time our Republican colleagues write a finance bill, it leaves us less safe and more prone to financial crisis. We saw the very real consequences of this when Silicon Valley Bank failed in 2023. That failure was the direct result of Republican legislation that exempted Silicon Valley Bank from Dodd-Frank Act regulations. GOP proponents of that bill had argued without evidence that Dodd-Frank was too onerous and that big banks needed regulatory relief. But it only took a couple of years for their disastrous deregulatory agenda to lead exactly where we all knew it would, with billions of dollars of customer deposits evaporating overnight, and with the federal government bailing out the bank's uninsured depositors. This time, Republicans are at it again with two bills that will create a weak and ineffective regulatory regime for cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, allowing exchanges and insurers to continue risky, fraudulent, and illegal practices with limited oversight by the SEC or Commodity Futures Trading Commission. These bills give the crypto industry exactly what it wants. They get the illusion of a real regulatory regime and the legitimacy that would bestow. They get weak rules that can be exploited and manipulated for financial gain, and they get enforcement mechanisms that are so meager and underfunded that they won't deter bad actors. We've seen what deregulation gets us. It got us the 2008 financial crisis. It gets us bankruptcies and bailouts, and it ultimately leaves hard-working Americans holding the bag while CEOs get golden parachutes. And it's not like we're talking about deregulating some benign financial product. Crypto stands out as a uniquely risky asset. From the invention of Bitcoin until now, the primary demonstrated uses for cryptocurrencies have been speculation, fraud, and money laundering. You can't really use crypto to buy anything. The coins themselves aren't backed by any profits, assets, or other tangible property. And while we've been hearing about all the wonders of the blockchain for over a decade, shockingly few companies actually use it in a way that's essential to their business. In practice, the main real-life use case for crypto is money laundering. Crypto is used by Mexican cartels to launder their proceeds from drugs trafficked into the United States. Terrorist organizations fund their operations with crypto, and countries like North Korea use cryptocurrencies to avoid U.S. sanctions and fund their nuclear weapons programs. In fact, Bitcoin and Tether are the payment methods of choice for the fentanyl manufacturers in China that supply the Mexican cartels as well as other fentanyl traffickers inside the United States. These criminal organizations rely on crypto, and the legislation under consideration today will not disrupt that illegal commerce. The Clarity and Genius Acts will not do anything to prevent crypto from being used to break our laws or fund fentanyl deaths and senior fraud. These bills do not provide any meaningful regulations to ensure that issuers and exchanges fully comply with anti-money laundering laws. Add to this that cryptocurrencies are used to facilitate billions of dollars worth of fraud against Americans each year. This fraud comes in the form of scams, especially those targeting seniors, where fraudsters trick people into purchasing fake crypto products and then run off with the money, leaving the seniors with no recourse. Then there's the institutional fraud, the fraud that comes from the crypto companies themselves. Here we also have a long list of examples, the most notable being the fall and bankruptcy of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, which incorporated itself in the Bahamas to avoid American regulatory scrutiny, gambled with customer funds, and ultimately left its customers penniless because of fraudulent business practices. There's no other way around it. The Clarity and Genius Acts will not stop these types of fraud from happening, and they will leave regular investors on the hook if they're victims of fraud. The other glaring omission in these bills is they do nothing to stop the abuse of cryptocurrencies and stablecoins as tools for bribery and influence peddling. As President Trump and his allies have demonstrated on a daily basis, any politician can issue a crypto asset, own the majority of tokens, and then anyone who wants to buy that politician's attention or votes can just invest in the asset. There's no oversight or disclosure requirement. There's deniability on both sides of the transaction. Any person, any foreign country can bribe and buy politicians through cryptocurrency like this. And those who've purchased such coins have been open about their motivations for doing so. Right before his inauguration, President Trump issued his own coin, the Trump coin, for which he is the majority owner. Millions of dollars of questionable funds, including funds from foreigners and foreign governments, have flowed into this coin, as well as his companies Trump Media and World Liberty Financial. All in all, it's estimated that President Trump has netted $1 billion from those crypto schemes, which take advantage of the office of the president to enrich him and his family. During the 2024 election, crypto companies donated millions of dollars to elect the president, and after he was elected, they donated millions more to his inaugural committee. And it's notable that in his first 6 months in office, Trump has dismantled all the regulators that oversee the financial and crypto industries, dropped criminal charges and investigations against various crypto companies, pardoned a crypto exchange that pleaded guilty to abetting money laundering, and pardoned the former owner of the Silk Road who was responsible for selling hundreds of millions of dollars worth of drugs on the deep web. Apparently, anyone who seeks to buy influence in this White House simply has to find one of the president's companies or meme coins and make a sizable investment. Emiratis and Saudis are investing in Trump's crypto assets to curry favor. People looking for pardons, dismissals, or preferential regulatory treatment are taking advantage of the Trump crypto scheme. Lawyers and lobbyists are advertising to clients that they can buy a pardon for the right price. It's easily the biggest potential corruption scandal in our nation's presidential history. If there's any crypto regulation we need right now, it's a bright line prohibition on any elected official profiting off a crypto asset. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 15th anniversary of the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision, which paved the way for corporations and billionaires to spend unlimited money in our elections. Because of this ruling, anyone for the right price can buy their preferred outcomes in our elections and in Congress. And one need look no further than Elon Musk and the crypto bills that we are considering today to see the impact of the Citizens United decision. We all know about the millions that Musk poured into the Trump campaign and the White House access he was granted before their abrupt split recently. But the crypto industry also spent a lot of money, and it spent money to make these bills happen. Over the past few years, the crypto industry has emerged as one of the biggest and most aggressive political spenders in American politics. In the 2024 election, crypto emerged as the biggest corporate spender, accounting for nearly half of all the corporate money spent. Crypto outspent every other business lobby by tens of millions of dollars. And while the crypto industry's political spending is enormous, what really sets it apart is the brazenness with which the industry buys influence in Washington. Usually it's hard to exactly pinpoint a direct relationship between political spending and outcomes, but crypto spending is so in your face that we can actually put a price on these bills. All in all, the Clarity and Genius Acts cost the crypto industry about $245 million. And that's a conservative figure. That's just the money spent on 2024 campaigns. If you count money spent to hire expensive lobbyists to come to Congress and fly representatives with industry talking points, the number's even higher. Crypto's $245 million was spent supporting candidates who backed the industry and defeating candidates who did not. And crypto got a good return on its investment. In the overwhelming majority of races that crypto principals invested in, they got their preferred candidate. And now crypto companies have been able to write their own regulations to ensure they won't face serious scrutiny or oversight, meaning that fraud and money laundering will continue unabated, and investors will be on the hook when the next crypto crisis happens. 15 years after the Citizens United decision, these bills are the direct result. Crypto is a textbook example of the consequences of that decision. The question before us today is, how should cryptocurrencies be regulated? And the answer we're getting is with regulations provided by the crypto industry itself. 15 years later, Citizens United has been an unmitigated disaster for our country. Unlimited spending in politics has corroded our democracy. It has bred cynicism and nihilism in the political process. It's made Americans feel disenfranchised and powerless. It says to every American, your voice doesn't count unless you can pay to play. We have a political system where any company or any rich person can pay for advertisements, pay for lobbyists, donate to campaigns and PACs and super PACs, all to buy influence and get their desired outcomes from Congress or the White House. And time again, in every sector of our economy, corporations and the rich have won in Congress, in the courts, and in the rulemaking process, even in decision-making by enforcement agencies. We see the consequences of Citizens United everywhere we turn. It's the reason corporations can screw over workers and consumers with no penalty. It's why every part of the economy is monopolized by 2 or 3 companies that sell you poor products and give you bad service. It's why we're diving headfirst into a global climate crisis and doing nothing about it. It's why every time someone runs for office on a platform of putting people over profits, they have to endure attacks from super PACs supported by billionaires or business interests. Our democracy will remain imperiled so long as the mega rich can buy influence, votes, and elections. If anyone was unsure of the consequences posed by Citizens United in 2010, it is now clear, beyond any doubt, that the decision was an abject failure for the country. We have to overturn Citizens United, get dark money out of politics, and make sure that our government is accountable to voters, not donors. But to my colleagues here in the House, we don't need to end campaign spending for members of Congress to do the right thing. Integrity doesn't require authorizing legislation. We cannot allow big money donors to buy or bully Congress. We need to do the right thing. Mr. Speaker, today's rule also provides for consideration of the fiscal year 2026 Defense Appropriations Bill. Since taking the majority in the House, Republicans have abandoned, unfortunately, any pretense of bipartisan compromise to promote our national security by loading every defense bill with radical right-wing policy riders. These riders have turned what was once a rare area of bipartisan consensus into yet another partisan divide. This time around, Republicans have loaded the National Defense Bill with provisions to prevent female service members from accessing reproductive health care. They've given a green light to discrimination against LGBTQ service members, and this bill does nothing to address the gross mismanagement of the Pentagon by Pete Hegseth, a man who has leaked classified intelligence, who spends more time in front of his Pentagon makeup mirror and doing press stunts than effectively managing the armed forces, and who has prioritized support for bigotry and weird culture war obsessions like changing the pictures on the Pentagon's website and renaming military bases after Confederate icons. When you combine this bill with the money spent by Republicans in the Big Beautiful Bill, the United States is on track to spend over $1 trillion on defense. Every year we spend more and more on defense, and it's not clear that taxpayers are getting a good deal. After years of consolidation and lax antitrust enforcement, the defense industry has ossified around 5 major prime contractors, each with a degree of specialization that means only 2 or 3 companies ever compete for a major contract. The consequences of this consolidation can be found across the defense industrial base. We don't make enough of the weapons and platforms that we need. Production for major platforms is often beset by delays and cost overruns. We spend billions on studies and research programs that don't lead anywhere. Production timelines are always being extended, delivery times delay, per unit costs increase, and in the face of these glaring business inefficiencies, Congress and the Pentagon always give the contractors what they ask for and ask for very little in return. We need to replenish our weapons stockpiles. We need to quickly field next-generation military assets like the Columbia submarine and the B-21 radar. We need to bolster supply chains that support this production, and we need to ensure that the nation has the industrial capacity to respond to a sustained major conflict anywhere in the world. But in order for us to achieve these goals, meet our national security needs, and support our service members, Congress needs to perform real oversight over the Pentagon and defense contractors. In my time in Congress, I have supported multiple efforts to require the Pentagon to perform a clean audit with tangible enforcement mechanisms to ensure compliance. But in each case, these efforts haven't garnered the votes for passage, because at the end of the day, this body has not been willing to hold the Pentagon and defense industry's feet to the fire. The Pentagon has failed to complete 7 audits in a row, 7. And until the Pentagon faces real consequences for being unable to account for the billions of taxpayer dollars it spends every year and failing to comply with congressional oversight, we will never have accountability. And at a time when our Republican colleagues' quest to root out fraud, waste, and abuse has led them to slash funding for Americans' health care and hunger relief, it's astonishing that they're willing to write yet another blank check to the Department of Defense, no questions asked, despite growing evidence of cost overruns, mismanagement, and more. At the end of the day, I want our service members to have every single advantage over our adversaries. I want them to have all the tools, platforms, resources, and weapon systems we can provide. But I don't want taxpayers to get a bad deal. I don't want to waste money on overpriced defense contracts that overpromise and underdeliver. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves, and the gentlelady and all members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the president. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for the record, supporters of cryptocurrency exercised their First Amendment right last election and contributed to many candidates. In fact, those supporters spent over $50 million in support of Democrat candidates. Supporters of cryptocurrency are not just Republicans or Democrats. They are Americans who are very eager to see us pass the most important legislation for the cryptocurrency industry in history this week. I yield 4 minutes to the gentlewoman from North Carolina, our Rules Committee Chairwoman, Virginia Fox.
The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague from Georgia for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the rule and the underlying legislation. The 4 separate measures being considered under this rule all have a singular commonality. They serve to put American interests first, where they should always be. All of us can agree that within the global markets and on the global stage, America must always remain competitive and stand tall. Not sometimes, not occasionally, not part of the time, always. From protecting consumer privacy to ushering in a new era of financial innovation, providing for the common defense of the nation, to strengthening the dominance of the American dollar, these pieces of legislation are as consequential as they are vital. This is the caliber of legislation that the American people expect our Republican majority to deliver. Republicans here in the People's House continue to exceed that mark. We've done it many times before, and this week we will do it again. One of the 4 bills being considered under this rule is H.R. 4016, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2026. This legislation provides for appropriations for the DoD for the fiscal year ending on September 30, 2026. Mr. Speaker, you know as well as I do that Congress's first solemn responsibility, one of many, is to provide for the common defense of the nation. In total, H.R. 4016 provides $831.5 billion and adheres to the budgetary top line put forward in the President's FY26 budget request. Consider for a moment the provisions contained within this legislation that uphold Congress's responsibility. $189 billion for active reserve and National Guard military personnel, which is $6.6 billion above the fiscal year 2025 enacted level. A 3.8% increase in basic pay for all military personnel beginning January 1st of next year. Sizable investments in research and development, procurement efforts, operation, and maintenance. Mr. Speaker, I'll be voting yes on the rule and yes on the 4 underlying measures. I urge my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back to my friend from Georgia.
The gentlelady yields back to the gentleman from Georgia. The gentleman from Georgia reserves.
Yes.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, if we defeat the previous question, I will offer an amendment to the rule to make in order amendment number 50 to H.R. 3633, offered by Representative Khanna, which requires the Attorney General to preserve and release any records related to Jeffrey Epstein. I applaud my colleagues, Representatives Veazey and Khanna, for their work to release the Epstein files. I strongly support these efforts and the release of the files. Last night at the Rules Committee, Republicans rejected an amendment that would have required the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files, multiple criminal investigations which allegedly documented trafficking of young women and girls by Jeffrey Epstein, a sex offender and financier with whom the president often socialized. For years, the president and those in his orbit, including Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel, alleged that prior administrations had covered up the identities of the rich and powerful people to whom Epstein had trafficked the girls and the facts surrounding his allegedly suspicious death. They came into office pledging to seek accountability for the horrific crimes by revealing Epstein's client list and other information, but recently backtracked, and refused to release any further information. There appear to be only two explanations for this about-face. Either the Epstein files did not contain the explosive information that Trump and his allies claimed during his campaign, or this administration is the one covering up what's in the files. So last night, all of the Republicans on the Rules Committee, except one, voted against releasing the files. Why would they try to prevent the truth about Epstein's abuse and those he enabled from coming out? That's anybody's guess. But with this previous question, the entire Republican conference has the opportunity to correct that mistake. They can vote today to release the Epstein files. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record, along with any extraneous material, immediately prior to the vote on the previous question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to discuss our proposal, I now yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, the sponsor of a resolution directing the Trump administration to release the Epstein files. Mr. Veazey.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the resolution was voted down by the Republicans last night, so let's speak the truth, because there are two Americas right now. In their America, billionaires can buy silence, sweep crimes under the rug, and count on friends in high places to protect them. In our America, if you break the law, you're held accountable, period. In their America, wealth and power buy secrecy. In our America, justice demands sunlight and truth. In their America, underage girls are treated like disposable property by predators who believe they will never face consequences. And in our America, victims deserve justice, and the predators should face the full weight of the law. And time again, this administration has chosen them, the billionaires, the elite, the people who think children are theirs to exploit over us, the American people. And time again, they've looked into the cameras and promised the American people, we will release the Epstein files. We heard it over and over again. We'll tell you the truth. But when the moment of truth comes, they slam the door shut. Why? Because their loyalty is not to justice. It's about protecting the rich and famous and powerful, no matter how monstrous their crimes are. Meanwhile, Republicans in this chamber are working overtime to gut health care for 17 million Americans, to rip food off of families' tables, and to kill good-paying jobs for this so-called big ugly bill. But when it comes to exposing powerful predators who preyed on underage girls, suddenly they got nothing to say. That's because they think there's one set of rules for billionaires and another for the rest of us. They think the American people will forget, that we'll stop asking questions, that we'll let them keep secrets. But let me be crystal clear. This is not about partisanship. This is about people. It's our America. No one, no matter how rich, how famous, or how connected, is above the law.
Would the gentlelady wish to yield additional time?
An additional 30 seconds. Thank you.
The gentleman is recognized.
In our America, no one is beyond accountability. We will not forget. We will not look away, and we will not stop demanding the truth. We demand the immediate release of the Epstein files. No more games, no more lies, no more protection for predators hiding behind the rich and powerful. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
My colleagues are referring to a tactic Democrats employed yet again to try to take control of the House of Representatives through the Rules Committee. They did so because they are desperate to stop us from passing the most important cryptocurrency legislation in the history of our country, and because they are, for whatever reason, desperate to stop us from bringing forward our legislation that funds our brave military. The Republican majority is not going to hand the keys to the House of Representatives to a caucus who on a daily basis impugns and denigrates the 77 million Americans who voted for President Trump. And to my friends watching at home who support Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, make no mistake, members of Congress who vote against the rule today are voting against the most important legislation for the cryptocurrency industry in history. I beseech you, to those who appreciate, support, and invest in cryptocurrency, study today's vote. Do not let those who vote against us today during election time come around and ask for support as they claim to fight for this incredible industry. Judge them by their vote today. I yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Indiana, Ms. Houchin.
The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding and congratulate him for managing his first rule on the House floor. His constituents are lucky to have him representing him in the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the rule and the underlying legislation. This is an important week in the House as we take up legislation to fund our military and advance several key financial services bills, including efforts to establish a clear market structure for cryptocurrency and protect Americans' financial privacy by blocking a surveillance-style central bank digital currency. But let me begin with the Defense Appropriations Bill. Chairman Calvert and his team have once again delivered a strong, thoughtful proposal that makes strategic investments in American military superiority, strengthens our southern border, and most importantly, takes care of our troops and their families. I'm especially proud that the rule makes in order several of my amendments, including those that highlight the importance of continued support for the Advanced Combat Engine and innovative semiconductor production, two areas critical to our national security and future readiness. On the financial services front, as a former member of the Financial Services Committee, I'm encouraged to see Chairman Hill and Chairman Thompson leading the charge to ensure America remains a global leader in the fintech sector. This package brings regulatory clarity to the digital asset ecosystem, promotes market innovation, and protects Americans' financial freedom and privacy by prohibiting the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC without congressional approval. These bills are the product of years of thoughtful, collaborative work, some of which I was proud to contribute to. These bills ensure that we remain a leader in the digital asset ecosystem and will strengthen the U.S. dollar as a global currency. Mr. Speaker, I urge the passage of this rule and all of these bills. And finally, to our friends on the other side of the aisle, regarding the amendment that was offered in our Rules Committee last night that several Republicans voted against. It's a stretch on germaneness, although it was ruled germane, but I do find it incredibly interesting that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle suddenly want to force this issue because it's politically expedient, even though they did not release any of it when they were in charge. And I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back to the gentleman from Georgia. The gentleman from Georgia reserves.
Reserve.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, this is a debate about what Congress should be considering. And my amendment would simply allow Congress to express its will with respect to the release of the Epstein files. This is something our Republican colleagues and certainly key members of the Trump administration have been talking about for years until their recent about face. So, Congress can express its will. We would like to have it put up for a vote. It doesn't block any votes on the crypto bills or the Defense Department funding, but we think that the administration should release these files, and it really is a little confusing, I think, on why suddenly our Republican colleagues are blocking this, but perhaps it was a mistake. At least one Republican voted with Democrats last night to release the files, and so this would just give all of our colleagues the opportunity to say what they've been saying for so many years, that the Epstein files should be released. With that, Mr. Speaker, I would yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night, the Speaker's Rules Committee voted to block my amendment that called for the full release of the Epstein files while protecting the victim's identity. Let's just be clear. They voted to protect rich and powerful men who were abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. That's what this vote is about. A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost its moral purpose. So you ask, why did they vote this way? Let's speak plainly. Because these rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C., they are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington. And this is a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades? We are going to get a vote again this afternoon. And I hope people will find the courage of a Republican like Ralph Norman, or a Republican like Marjorie Taylor Greene, or a Republican like Thomas Massey, or the many, many MAGA Republicans who are demanding the full release of the Epstein files. It's not a question just of Epstein. It's a question of trust in our democracy. It's a question of restoring a government of the people, by the
gentleman's
people,
time has
for the
expired.
people.
Just a moment. Does the gentlelady wish to yield any additional
Another
time?
30 seconds.
The gentleman has an additional 30 seconds.
And it's a question of the rebirth of a nation that stands for our children. I hope everyone in this up or down vote will vote to make sure that the Epstein files are released while protecting victims' identity.
Resume.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
I join the millions of Americans who want accountability for anyone who committed crimes with Jeffrey Epstein, but I ask you, can you really trust the same radical leftists who presided over one of the greatest scandals in American history, a coup in Joe Biden's White House in which unelected staff actively sought the destruction of our country? Can you really trust the same radical leftists who sought to segregate those of us who opted to make medical decisions for ourselves during the COVID-19 pandemic? And can you really trust the same radical leftists who have spent the last decade trying and failing to tear down President Trump, one of the greatest presidents in American history? And can you really trust those same people who are trying to stop us from passing the most important cryptocurrency legislation in history and appropriations to fund our brave military today? A vote against today's rule is a vote against cryptocurrency and our Department of Defense. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Utah, my colleague, Mr. Kennedy.
The gentleman from Utah is recognized.
I thank my friend, the gentleman from Georgia, for this opportunity to speak. And Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of the rule for H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, and H.R. 1919, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. Together, these bills provide much-needed clarity on digital asset regulation and ensure critical consumer protections so Americans retain their financial freedom. Before basketball became the great sport that we know and love, it needed rules. Without structure, the game could not grow and thrive. The same is true for digital assets. Innovation depends on clear, reliable guardrails. For too long, this space has been clouded by legal uncertainty and regulation by enforcement, leaving the industry without direction and consumers without protection. The Clarity Act addresses that gap. It defines the roles of the SEC and CFTC, establishes clear rules of the road for responsible innovation, and protects the rights of Americans to hold and use their own digital property. At the same time, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, which I co-sponsor, defends the foundational principles of financial freedom. A government-run central bank digital currency would allow unelected bureaucrats to surveil, program, and ultimately control how Americans spend their money. This legislation protects Americans by ensuring the Fed cannot issue CBDCs to individuals. Last year, Representative Tyler Clancy and I, in the state of Utah, passed a law banning CBDC, but we all recognize that state laws cannot pertain or prevail throughout the country. This bill allows us to establish security and protections for the American people all over our country. When the Chinese Communist Party thinks CBDC is a good idea, I think that tells us exactly how we should vote against CBDC. These bills promote free market innovation, protect privacy, and ensure the next generation of finance is built on American values, not federal overreach. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman from Georgia reserves.
Reserves.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure what the gentleman from Georgia is talking about when he says that my amendment is offered as a product of radical leftists. I mean, I know that it's rare in D.C., but this amendment actually has broad bipartisan support from the far right, from the far left, from the middle. We just want to release the Epstein files, and that's why we've offered the amendment, and this body has the opportunity to vote on it. I don't understand why my Republican colleagues are suddenly so adamant about throwing up procedural hurdles to have the Epstein files released. At any rate, at this point, Mr. Speaker, I would yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I worked hard in school, but the grade I'm proudest of is getting the first F ever issued by the crypto industry. This rule prohibits you from considering 2 amendments that had total support from Democrats and total rejection from Republicans in the Financial Services Committee. The first prohibits the use of taxpayer money to buy crypto. Trump has already said he wants what he calls a strategic reserve of crypto. And so if you vote against this rule, you're voting to allow him to buy Bitcoin or Trump coin with taxpayer money. That second amendment, also prohibited by this rule, says that taxpayer money will not be used to bail out stablecoin or other crypto assets. We've already seen dozens of scandals since Sam Bankman-Fried, but now the industry can say, we've got total power in Congress. They gave us just a patina of regulation. If there's ever a problem with your crypto assets, we'll get you bailed out. This rule is incredibly hypocritical. It tells us that we're supposed to be for innovation and blockchain. Then it calls for the prohibition of the Fed having blockchain or any electronic use of the U.S. dollar. The Constitution says currency is what the U.S. Congress should control. But this bill will say that the dollar must use George Washington technology while China can have a digital yuan and the crypto bros can have digital hidden money. It's not surprising that President Trump was against crypto until he realized that he could make hundreds of millions for his campaign and billions for his family by signing up with the crypto bros. This is Crypto Week. It's also Tax Evaders Month, National Drug Dealers Day, and Human Traffickers Tuesday. Vote no on this rule. Release the Epstein files. And don't try to distract us and say that the reason we can't protect girls in our country is because, I'll ask for another 30 seconds.
Yes.
Gentleman's recognized, 30 seconds.
And don't tell us we can't release the Epstein files because you hate Joe Biden or because you hate leftists. People on the right, people on the center, everyone who wants to protect girls in America says release the Epstein files now. I yield back.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair, and the gentlelady from Pennsylvania reserves.
I reserve.
Okay, the gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
And to speak to the most important cryptocurrency legislation in the history of our country, I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Moore.
The gentleman from West Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding, and I rise in support of the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. I am a co-sponsor, actually, of the Clarity Act, which creates clear, enforceable rules for digital commodity markets and gives innovators confidence to build here in the United States of America. Similarly, the Genius Act establishes a dollar-backed stablecoin, reinforcing the U.S. dollar's dominance in global financial markets. Finally, the anti-CBDC legislation ensures we never enact a CCP-like financial surveillance regime in this country. Together, these bills ensure the U.S. remains the world leader in digital asset innovation. I encourage my colleagues to support these common sense pieces of legislation, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Georgia reserves. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I would reserve.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania reserves. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Moore.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, digital assets are not some future concept. They are already a key part of our financial system, and Washington needs to start acting like it. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans have used them in some form, and we cannot afford to let our adversaries, especially the Chinese Communist Party, write rules for these new financial frontier while we sit on the sidelines. That's why we're advancing these 3 critical pieces of legislation to make sure America stays the world leader in financial innovation. Under the Biden administration, Americans' innovators operated in a cloud of legal uncertainty at best. Folks had to choose between dealing with outdated rules or taking their ideas overseas. The Trump administration, however, has taken a much more forward-thinking approach, and now it's Congress's turn to step up. The Clarity Act changes this to establish clear regulatory language that allows for the protection of consumers while also giving innovators the certainty they need to build and grow right here in the United States. Stablecoins have shown real promise for faster, cheaper payments at home and abroad. They've opened access to the U.S. dollar for people who've never had that kind of financial stability before. But while the private sector has raced ahead, Washington has been stuck. The Genius Act fixes that. It gives stablecoin issuers a regulatory framework for strong reserves, real redemption rights, and smart risk management. And finally, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act is about protecting liberty. It blocks the federal government from launching a central bank digital currency that could be used to track or control how law-abiding citizens spend their dollars. Together with these 3 bills, this is a big step forward. President Trump is making American leadership in financial tech a priority. These bills reflect that vision with clear rules, strong protections, and a real momentum to keep the dollar at the heart of global finance. Let's make crypto great again. I yield back.
The gentleman from North Carolina yields. The gentleman from Georgia
reserves.
The gentleman from Georgia reserves. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
I would inquire whether the gentleman is ready to close or if he has more witnesses.
I'm ready to close upon.
Okay, the gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, last night in the Rules Committee, my Democratic colleagues and I offered multiple amendments to try to improve the crypto bills. We offered amendments to prevent the president and his closest relatives from profiting off crypto while he's in office. We offered amendments to protect investors and consumers and allow the kind of government oversight that is needed to protect our economy. All these amendments were rejected by committee Republicans. Last night, as we discussed the defense spending bill, we also pressed Republicans on how military families will be impacted by the Medicaid cuts in Republicans' big, ugly bill. About 850,000 military families on TRICARE also receive health care through Medicaid, particularly children with special needs. Those families may now see their health benefits cut or taken away as a result of the big, ugly bill. And that issue was not addressed in the defense spending bill. Our Republican colleagues didn't want to hear it, and I doubt we'll be able to prevent them from proceeding with this misguided crypto legislation today. But I will say this. If these bills become law, we can predict many more crypto scandals and crises and money laundering. A lot of people will lose a lot of money, and no one will face accountability for taking advantage of retail investors. I hope that day doesn't come. But it's bills like this that will determine the future of our financial system. Do we want a system that promotes speculation, bubbles, Ponzi schemes, and frauds, or one that promotes investment in innovative and productive businesses that grow the real economy in ways that benefits all Americans? Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote no on the PQ and rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady from Pennsylvania yields back the balance of her time. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this week the House has the ability to advance 4 pieces of legislation under this rule. H.R. 1919, the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act, which prohibits the Federal Reserve from issuing a central bank digital currency, CBDC, that undermines Americans' rights to financial privacy. H.R. 3633, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025, also known as the Clarity Act, establishes clear, functional requirements for digital asset market participants, prioritizing consumer protection while fostering innovation. S. 1582, the Genius Act, which provides a clear regulatory framework for the issuance of payment stablecoins in the U.S., and H.R. 4016, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act of 2026, which provides critical resources to strengthen military readiness, support service members and their families, invest in next-generation defense capabilities, and ensure the United States can meet global threats with confidence and resolve. I urge my colleagues to join me in voting yes on the previous question, yes on the rule. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time and move the previous question on the resolution.
Gentleman has yielded. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I would request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of adoption of the resolution and the motion to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1717. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 211, the nays are 210. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
I request a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed.
House come to order. Shh. The House come to order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition? Mr. Speaker, I understand the consent to speak out of order. Without objection, the gentleman is recognized. Speaker, I rise today mourning the loss of life in the state of Texas, but that touched profoundly everybody across this great country. So many people who are visiting this part of Texas. And obviously we've been struck by the loss of life, particularly for those young girls associated with Camp Mystic. And it has been grueling. It was a rough week. A lot of destruction, a lot of beautiful parts of our state that were destroyed. But we will rebuild. And here's the thing that I want to say. When people talk about destruction, what will not be destroyed is the spirit of the people of Texas and the spirit of the people that those camps represent. The spirit of the little girls who are already talking about wanting to go back. The spirit of the people associated with Dick Eastland, the camp director of Camp Mystic, who gave his life trying to save those little girls. The spirit of Jane Ragsdale, who lost her life saving 5 little girls. Her guitar was found down the Guadalupe River just yesterday. The spirit of all of the little girls that were riding in the bus as they left Camp Mystic, singing hymns, expressing their faith as they were looking at the destruction that they couldn't possibly comprehend as they left that camp. But they were still putting their faith in their Lord and their Savior. And if there's anything that we can take out of this, it's that sense of community and that sense of pride that we have in knowing that we will rebuild and that we will come together. But that sense that we know that the power of the cross that stands on the hills over the city of Kerrville, the power of the faith of the people of Texas, the power of the faith of the people of this nation who have responded, the millions of dollars that have come into the Community Foundation of the Hill Country, $30 million last week. I think that number is rising. Thanks to all of you here in this delegation. Most of you have reached out to me personally and to my friends and colleagues in this delegation. It's not just Kerr County, it's the state of Texas. Many of my colleagues have been affected across the state. But thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your well wishes. But just know that their spirit endures, and I cannot tell you how proud I am of the people of Texas and the people of Kerr County, Texas, and the first responders who are today back in the floodwaters, resuming the search for the missing. And there's still over 100 missing in that part of our state. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a moment of silence.
The chair asks all those present in the chamber, as well as members and staff throughout the Capitol, to please join us in a moment of silence.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, there are some little girls from Camp Mystic in the gallery, and I just want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on adoption of House Resolution 580, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 37, House Resolution 580. Resolution providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 4016, making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30 of 2026 and for other purposes. Providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 3633, to provide for a system of regulation of the offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes. Providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 1919, to amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit the Federal Reserve Bank from offering certain products or services directly to an individual, to prohibit the use of central bank digital currency for monetary policy and for other purposes. Providing for consideration of the bill, Senate 1582, to provide for the regulation of payment stablecoins and for other purposes, and waiving a requirement of Clause 6A of Rule 13 with respect to the consideration of certain resolutions reported from the Committee on Rules.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 196, the nays are 223. The resolution is not adopted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Scalise of Louisiana moves to reconsider the vote on adoption of House Resolution 580.
Clerk will suspend. The House is not in order. The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Scalise of Louisiana moves to reconsider the vote on adoption of House Resolution 580.
The questions on the motion to reconsider. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. And the opinion of the chair, the ayes have.
Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose, the gentleman?
I ask for the yeas and nays. Yeah.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the motion from the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Latta, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1717, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
Union Calendar Number 158, H.R. 1717, a bill to direct the Federal Communications Commission to establish a council to make recommendations on ways to increase the security, reliability, and interoperability of communications networks and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. The yeas are 380, the nays are 33. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.